everyone, and welcome to another exciting Transformation Leader webinar. And today we will be discussing a very hot topic, in my opinion, and this is how to fix a failing digital transformation and 5 actions to take this week. My name is Victoria Shingun-Becerra, and I am a community lead at T4L under the pillar Transforming Business with AI. And of course, today I'm not on my own. I give a wonderful introduction, but fun facts about my speaker with me today. He has his childhood in a village outside Arusha. He's an undergraduate in political philosophy and a graduate of the School for International Relations and Physics. Wow. He's worked all over the world, primarily in IT, and worked, guys, listen to this. He worked with Kasatu in South Africa from 1991 to 1994. So those are some fun facts about our speaker today. So, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce professionally Mr. Eden Purett. And he's an IAM architect and IAM strategist with more than 25 years of experience. And he provides services across 3 broad categories, and that's like technical and organizational education. And his clients have included the Canadian government, electric utilities, as well as international private and public sector organizations. Eden, thank you so much for taking time out. Welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Much appreciate the generous introduction. Just by way of our topic of what to do with a failing digital transformation. Like many of us in this particular field, we play with the emerging technologies of AI. So when I was first asked to do this, I went straight to AI and I said, help produce a presentation on this particular topic. And it came back with interesting information, and a little bit of prompt engineering allowed me to narrow it down to something a little bit more useful. And then after a bit toing, froing, and some editing, I took the document and handed it in to sort of you and Paul, because much like what AI does, it effectively crowdsources content. So one was going to approach the issue of how do you identify a failing digital transformation project and what should you do about it. That document is actually a pretty good, now at least, pretty good primer on what the latest thinking of is. And I've shared that, and Paul and you are going to, I assume, share it with anyone who wants it.
Definitely.
Where there is a difference between skills and experience. So experience is really the pattern recognition of, oh, I've seen that, I've seen that, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave the skills of what to do related to a failing digital transformation project with the documentation. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience of what have I seen that has been the real reasons why these projects fail, and what have I seen about the ways of solving the problem when you've seen it. And I put it into a slide deck. For those people who download the slide deck, I included notes that are, if you were to go ahead and do this presentation yourself in your own organization, take it. It's yours, it's unlocked, and hopefully it's straightforward and simple enough that whatever I have now, it becomes your experience moving forward. So if I've got this right, I'm going to share my screen.
Awesome.
And
Thank you.
PowerPoint.
So I'm just going to highlight some of the benefits of being part of the transformation leadership. You get to learn quite a lot.
It is actually one of the great things about the work that I do for a living, is each one of these projects which maps the as is and maps the to be environment in these various industries and governments and organizations. I get to learn how all these things are done, and it's an awful lot of fun. Now I'm going to wait until you tell me that you can see my screen.
Okay, I can see a screen. I think in chat, if anybody can see our screens. Thank you, Nona. So over to you, then take it away.
Yes. Okay.
All right, we're good to go.
Okay. Now I'm just going to bring this up. Okay. So essentially, on have I got um this is going to be the human reasons around it. One of the first things around digital transformation projects is you're not on your own. There is nothing any one individual can do to save a project. There is not. It's just not possible. So essentially, as soon as this becomes a challenge, you're looking for a team. You're looking for a team of collaborators, um, and and most importantly, you'll find that in the literature, there's documentation around governance issues. It's really a question of team. Do you have a team that wants this project to succeed? And that becomes critical. This is the part where anyone who's worked on any kind of large digital transformation project, they will see this. When there is movement on a project, when they're moving forward towards success, they are moving together, people are focused on the mobility. They carry less baggage from they are nomads because they went to sleep here and tomorrow they're going to be there and they only carry with them what they need to. And there's a shared sense of purpose from the project managers on the screen, that racy chart. Everyone is in this together. And then you get to the spot where you can start to see, uh-oh, I am in trouble. And this is where different elements within the team, they start to lose either confidence in potential success or
Mhm.
or more importantly, they start to lose what their role in the potential success is going to be, and they start to stay put. And much like groups and organizations that stay put, the difference between a nomadic group and a group in a village and a group in a city, they start to build walls. They built walls to
Yeah.
protect their particular territory because their identity is no longer the shared success. Their identity is no longer the shared forward movement that I'm going to be somewhere else tomorrow down my project path. My identity is my role in my particular spot on this project. And from sort of the concepts of there's these there are ruins now, but in Great Zimbabwe, you can see huge walls around the old fortifications there. That's a culture that was staying put, not nomadic, and they build higher and higher walls. So as you're looking at, okay, how is this project succeeding or not succeeding? Are there walls around groups? Um, I'm going to move this along. Next page. Okay. Um, there's a lot of talk in various projects around, do you have IQ? Do you have EQ? Is the emotional quotient good? Bad. We try and be polite with each other. We try and be friendly with each other, and that all works. And if you find someone not behaving properly, there's an expression in from North America that one bad apple in the barrel ruins everything. This is
Mhm.
absolutely true in a project. You cannot, there is no way to that good behavior will ever win against bad behavior. It just can't. Good apples do not make bad apples better. One bad apple can ruin the other good apple. And the reason for that is you have a whole series of people working together and they see one person getting away with something, either getting away with something doing the wrong thing or more common, not pulling their share and pulling their weight, and yet receiving the same recognition, the same reward, the same pay, and most of us still have this childhood sense of justice. That's not fair. Uh, and
Yeah.
and it was critical in a project. When you see the that's not fair. When you see the person not carrying their weight, doing the wrong thing, putting down someone else in a public setting, they need to be called out. They need to be called out every single time. Now, again, as you call someone out on this behavior, be kind, be generous. There's no way of knowing what's happening in that person's life that has given them
Mhm.
a short fuse. Why are they angry today? Why are they upset? Why are they hurt? Why are they in pain? We're never
Mhm.
sure what reasons people bring to the meeting or bring to the project. So we should be generous and careful about that. But we must always call it out. And we're not calling it out for the benefit of that particular individual. We are calling it out for the benefit of all the project individuals. And that becomes critical. And Victoria, I'm just going to trust that you have access to chat. So if someone has questions, and I've seen not just the slides, I've seen these topics and these experiences over and over again. So I won't be
Yeah.
distracted with some particular question. Uh, and if someone's looking for particular examples, I'm happy to share that as well. Without naming the names of where I where I learned those experiences.
You don't want to expose anyone. No, totally true. Currently we don't have any questions from the chat, but one of the things, especially when you were talking about the toxic traits of one person, having a huge impact on the project. And you did mention there's a way to address it, especially now we're in an environment where EQ is diminishing the more we shift to tech. How do we manage that? How do we balance
I'm sorry, Victoria, I missed that last part.
how do we balance the shift as we're moving further and further away from increasing human interaction? And a lot of communication is being done electronically, and you've got toxic behavior on email too. How do we adjust? How do we manage that? What's the best way to do that? Because, like you said, it can kill a project before it gets anywhere.
Well, I mean, you raise a really good point because electronic communications are effectively the worst type of communication there is. So
Yeah.
even on these particular screens, we lose a little bit of context of what's going on. You can't see what I have on the walls behind me, and some of the art on the walls. Um, Tells you a little bit more about who I am. And then when you get into text and when you get into emails, you lose the micro expressions. It is very difficult to read humor or read sarcasm in an email or a text. Um, so, so when possible, do it in person. When you can't do it in person, do it on video. When you can't do it on video, do it by telephone, because each of these forms of communication that are in person at one end and completely and totally digital at the other end, with each layer, we lose a level of the actual communications. For those of us in the experience in the data world, we think of there is data, and if we add context to data, we have information. And if we add context to information, we have knowledge. And if we add context to knowledge, we have wisdom. And each one of those forms of communication that you're talking about is a little less context. So as we remove the context from each one of those forms of communication, they become less effective. So essentially, it's always be polite, because there's no reason not to be. You are with your colleagues. And I mean, we learn these lessons as very young children. Say please, say thank you, and don't take the other kids' toys. Uh, and 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 those lessons are transferable to those of us who are in adult, now in a slightly larger classroom. We get very focused on our self-importance of the hierarchy we work in. Oh, I'm a this and you're a that, and therefore I can talk down to you. Or even worse, I'm a this and you're a that, so I filter what I think I can share with you. And good ideas are never connected to an organization chart. They're right. They're good ideas or they're
Yeah.
not good ideas. So that kind of openness is critical for the sharing in terms of context. Um, I will move on to this next slide. So we talk about digital transformation, but one of the things around digital transformation projects is like all projects, there's project certification systems all over the world, and they teach people how to do project management. And and
Mm.
then if we want to work in this field, we often need those certifications. And so we go and we take this training, and it's a constant source of aggravation for me. We are constantly sold the trap at the
Uh-huh.
beginning of the project, before anyone has done anything, we write down our criteria for success. We say, okay, this
Yeah.
is what success looks like. We will achieve A, B, C, and D. We will do it in this timetable, and we will do it with this budget. But when we write that
Mhm.
down, when we write down our criteria for success, it is at the point in time where we know the very least. Right? And as soon as the project begins, we
Yeah.
start engaging with obstacles, right? And
Mhm.
and those obstacles are either opportunities to learn, or more common in project management methodology is nope, that's either considered scope creep, right? We have language for stopping
Yeah.
ourselves from doing anything other than what was originally envisioned. Um, and when we talk around digital transformation, it is all about change, right? Digital transformation is not about automating the existing process. It's not about saying we build things one, two, three, four, and now we're going to do this with a computer or a machine, right? Digital transformation is how many of the things that we are doing from a business perspective can we do in parallel, which is very different than automation. So digital transformation is about finding these parallel activities because that's where the real savings come from. And and we don't know those until we engage into the project, right? So one of the things we talk about in terms of the fix around how do you do that is what have you built into your project plan to learn as you go along? And then part of the issue around cost, because projects cost money. And at the very beginning of the project, a potential outcome was identified, and that outcome has value, right? And whether that's dollar value or business value
Mhm.
or societal value, there is a value we've identified, and the project is the cost of moving where we are now to achieving that value. And if the cost is worth it, if benefit minus cost equals value, if the benefit is worthwhile, then we go ahead with it. So we still have to be very conscious of that. As we move through our project, every single thing we do, every day we spend, every extra person we use is additional cost against the same potential benefit. So if we make too
Mhm.
many mistakes, our value drops as the benefit stays constant and the cost increases.
Yeah.
So it's critically important to address your cost issues as fast as you can. So fail early, experiment early. The
Yeah.
lessons here are
Really, yeah.
uh, if I can spend one day to make a mistake, that is much less expensive than spending 3 days before I admit it's a mistake. So that's that whole idea of fail as early as you can
Mhm.
and fail as large as you can. Because if you don't fail until you've spent 10 days, 15 days, or 30 days, or 50 days, there's 10, 15, or 30, or 50 days of cost against a standard benefit. All right. So essentially, all we're doing by failing late is reducing the value of our project.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
true. That's true. I do have a question
Sure.
here
Yes.
from Freeman from Nairobi, Kenya, Habari. Freeman was asked Freeman was asking, what recommendations do you have if the transformation is stalling because of change?
So is
What
if the transformation
recommendation is stalling because of change fatigue?
is so so first of all, change fatigue is real, right? It's absolutely real.
Yeah.
Um, and 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 one of the challenges we have with change fatigue is it sounds very soft, and it sounds very, we're all going to put around her, oh, we're tired. But from a math
Yeah.
perspective, change fatigue can actually be measured by absorptive capacity. What is the absorptive capacity of a
Oh,
particular group to take on additional change, to do more, to get more benefits? Um, and and essentially, it comes back to our original math again. If when we're looking at a
mhm,
project and we say benefit minus cost equals value, if we look at a
mhm,
part of the organization or a whole organization, depending on whether the digital transformation is enterprise wide or more limited, the less absorptive capacity there is in a particular group, the higher the cost it will be to get that group to absorb that change. Right? So we can
yeah.
force it, and we absolutely can force it. And and I'm sorry, buddy, we're doing this to you. But but if you force
Mhm,
change on a group that has limited capacity, the cost goes up, the benefit stays constant. Benefit minus increased cost is less value.
yeah.
So from a scheduling perspective, and many of these digital transformation projects are, they're not necessarily all enterprise, but they usually cover more than one business group. One of the important parts about
Yeah.
that is sequencing. Not everybody has the same change fatigue or has the same limits around absorptive capacity at the same time. So take your values up front. So, okay, this particular group has great absorptive capacity. So I'm going to start with them. And then I'm going to go to the next group. And then I'm going to go to the next group. So part of, from a change management perspective, as you're sequencing your rollout, you go to the change fatigue math, you go to the absorptive capacity to help do that. And one of the issues around calculating absorptive capacity is that people are smart, right?
Yeah.
People don't resist for no reason. More often than not, the organization is bringing change, but the change is almost
Mhm,
always calculated for the benefit of the organization, not for the individual. Right. So when we talk about benefit minus cost equals value, the value is for the organization. More often than not, the individual doesn't get it. And in more and more common in an AI digital transformation, not only is the benefit not for the individual, they're helping to write their own death sentence in the organization. So asking them to participate in one of these activities is a very, very difficult activity because people are smart. So one of the advantages of the sequencing these particular activities is uncertainty in an organization. People will make the assumption of the worst case scenario. If I don't know what that someone's about to do to me, I'm going to assume the
mhm,
worst. One of the
mhm,
advantages of sequencing absorptive capacity on who's ready for it and who doesn't want it is by the time it gets to the people who don't want it, their resistance is lowered because they've had access to real information and real experiences from their colleagues who talk about, because everybody talks, there are no secrets in an
mhm,
organization. So they know what's really coming at them. And those
yeah.
people who have been resisting change,
Mhm,
oh, that's the real level of effort I'm being asked. And that's almost always less than the fear of the level of effort they're being asked for. Does that help with your, like, I,
I don't know,
did he,
Freeman, were you answered?
did Freeman give me a thumbs up?
Let's see. I think yes, you got a thumbs
Okay.
up. We're good.
Okay. Thank you very
Also,
much. I I will move on to this one. So, um,
mhm,
this is the think big or think small around digital transformation. So not only is this relevant for doing the work, it is
yeah.
extremely important for fixing the work. And I took an example that
Okay.
yeah, malaria was a huge issue for us as kids, and I got it twice as a kid. Um, and mosquitoes are frankly more dangerous than elephants. It's that simple. And there's some
Yeah.
numbers.
Sure.
And if you want to be
Wow.
effective, um, think small.
Mhm,
Think as small as you can. So when you're looking at the digital transformation, as how you're going to do it, when you're looking at digital transformation to how you're going to fix it, um, think small. Solve is like
mm,
if it's too small, it doesn't do any good.
mm, okay.
And so, what is small enough? And in the literature that you're going to find in textbooks is from a product perspective, the term you're looking for when you're doing search is minimum viable product, right? What is the smallest thing that can do that? And from the hot big tech world, so I'm old enough to remember Windows and the introduction of Windows. And when Windows first came out, it was terrible. It was
Mm,
truly nothing more than a poor copy of what was already out in the Apple world. But
okay.
Microsoft released Windows as its minimum viable product. They knew it had bugs. They knew it didn't work. They knew it didn't meet all of their clients' needs, but it was just enough that their clients would buy the
Mm,
product and then they could do the fixes of their product. They could do the patches, they could do the upgrade, they could add the functions and features with the client's money.
ew,
And
yeah.
so when we talk around digital transformation, we talk around be small, be effective,
Mm,
and focus on the minimum viable product, because that also addresses the point around absorptive capacity. Right? If I've got a jar, it's easier to put a small thing in it than a big thing in it, no matter how full it is. My ability to address change, my ability to address minimum viable product, my ability to address fatigue, um, and and from an organization, the larger the project. So I've done SAP projects, for example. So
mm,
you begin an SAP project and you spend all of your money over the course of the project life cycle, and then you get to the end of the project life cycle, and you go live, and at that point you start to achieve or acquire the benefits you were after. But you have that
mm,
entire period where essentially it's been all cost and no benefit. But when you work small and you break your digital transformation into pieces over the same period of time, I am actually acquiring or achieving benefits while I'm working on my next aspect of my next function, my next feature, my next product. I am onboarding the benefits of the existing minimal viable product that I put in.
okay.
And
Okay, I've got a few questions here before we
okay,
move on. I've
hey,
got three. There's quite a few questions, but let me just start off with two, and we'll circle back. This is from Florence. Um, and Florence asks, how can we proactively mitigate change fatigue while ensuring that critical business changes are implemented successfully? How can we proactively mitigate change fatigue while ensuring that critical business changes are implemented successfully? I think you did touch on that. And then the next question,
wait,
or I'll answer
let
that.
me do. It's you said Florence.
Yes,
Yeah, hi
Florence.
Florence. Um, so in any one of the digital transformation project, you are likely to have a team on the project whose main focus area will be change management. Um, And and one of the misconceptions we traditionally have with change management is it was originally came out in the 1970s and 80s, and it's become very popular in the 1990s. But
Mm.
but the concepts we have for change management are 100 years old, and essentially we think that there will be resistance to change. So we bring in change managers, and we task them, we ask them to reduce the resistance to change. And from a and somewhere on my resume, we're not going to talk about it at all.
Mm.
There's some work with on the military side, but I will draw an example from that.
Mhm.
We treat change management the same way the military treats artillery or naval bombardment. We essentially ask our change managers to go out and they soften up the environment. use, use your training, use your communications, um, use language that people will not find offensive, to soften people up so that when the army invades, when the project arrives, people's resistance is lowered. It is, it is a terrible way to do change management. And I would say that instead, to Florence's point, a change manager has 2 ears and one mouth, and they should be using that ratio to do their jobs. They should go to the people who are going to be impacted by the change
Mhm.
and listen to them.
Yeah, I
And they should
agree.
say, "Hey, here's what the organization needs. Here's what we're thinking. What we're not sure is how to do it. We know what we need. We know what the outcome is because the value is in the outcome. The process of getting there is the project plan of how do we
Mhm.
go from where we are to where we want to be. And change management goes into the environment that's going to be impacted by this project and say, okay, we're doing this. How should we do this? What's the best way to do this? What is the sequencing to do this? How would you best like to hear this? How would you best like to participate in these changes that are going to impact you more than anybody else? And effectively, the change managers become the voice of the impacted community on the project team. So they listen to the project environment, they explain the project team, this is here's your process. Here's what you have to do. On the issues of vocabulary, every single project I've been in has, and lately I've been doing a lot of work in the government, acronyms. There are acronyms everywhere. And I go from one department to another department to a different company, and there are new acronyms to learn. And and the project team have acronyms as well. Who doesn't like acronyms? So
Mhm.
what the other part is that the change management team, they're responsible for learning the language of the project environment and then making sure that the project team uses that language,
Mhm.
because the language should be spoken in the environment that's going to be impacted. Those are the sorts of things that make an environment more comfortable with change, because not only do they have to change, I have to learn new language. I have to become a junior project. I'm writing business requirements, and no, just tell us what you do. Well, am I doing? We'll capture the business requirements, but we're not going to ask people to, okay, give us your business requirements and then help us with your functional requirements. Just tell us what you do. Well,
Yeah.
I don't have business requirements. I just do stuff. No, to
Mhm.
walk us through these processes, and walk us through the processes in the language that they use. We will often find, particularly in communities outside of the capital cities, that people's formal education tends to be limited, but not their value to the organization's processes. Right. So
Mhm.
asking people to speak in their own language with their own vocabulary. Because if all of a sudden we start asking people to start using a new vocabulary, we put them in a lower position. They are intimidated by, oh, I begin my relationship by knowing less. No,
Mhm.
no, no. You know more. The things we have to capture are in your head. So those kinds of tools are really useful for addressing that change. Um, Florence, do I get a thumbs up?
Let's see. Waiting for Flora. I believe we're good. Um,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, we got a double thumbs up there. I've got another question from Paul. And he asks, what happens if management asks for the project, but they are the same people who are blocking the success of the project or acting like it's a ticking a box exercise? What recommendations can you provide? Um, so what happens when if management asks for the project, but they're the same people blocking success of the project? And there is a follow-up from Jacob um, on that same question that Paul asked. Assuming MVP is a throwaway, how can you ensure you lead the next project as part of lessons learned?
Mm, okay. Two good
Yeah.
questions. Well, I'll deal with the first one first. It is not uncommon. More often than not, management is actually the resistance. Um, and one of the things that I've really enjoyed about my career is I'm often asked to go in and work on projects that have already failed. And people say, and so for me, it's like I get to go into a project where there's less money, there's less time, the environment is tainted by failure. So people think it's more difficult. It's actually easier to get a failed project to start than getting a project to start from new. And the reason for that is to exactly this point. If after the project is failed, they still call me and ask to rescue it, it's because management wants it.
Yeah.
If management didn't want it, they would just let it fail and let it stay failed. So you- it's virtually impossible to get a project to move forward until management is on board. And the only thing a project team can do is is offer transparency on that one.
Mm,
Essentially, keep escalating the issues around obstacles and describe them in the positive. If a manager is resisting the change of digital transformation, it's because they have identified that they are not going to receive any of the benefit
mm,
commensurate with their cost to either them personally or their group.
yeah.
And the way hierarchies work, you can't force your boss to do something. It is a career limiting move to if if you're at my age, you might want to go and poke your boss. Um, if you're at Paul's age or Victoria's age, you might not want to go poke your boss because you will get in trouble for that. And it's their project, right? They represent the organization and who is going to receive the benefit. So if they don't see that, let it be. Um, and now for the minimum viable product.
Mhm,
Yes, it is very, very common that the minimum viable product gets thrown out.
mhm,
And that's okay. Because if we go back to our benefit minus cost equals value, if I've gotten down to the smallest amount, I have achieved my value. This is that fallacy of sunk costs. I've already spent $1 million, 1 million shillings, 1 million person hours on something, so I can't let it go.
mm,
Not true. As soon as you get your value out of it, cool. Then tomorrow, what's my next minimum valuable product? And it could be there's been an emerging technology, or it could be there's new people, or there's new a boss or new staff, and I can do this project again. Okay, you want to do this? You want this minimum viable product again? Cool. What is the benefit? What is the cost? What is it? Will I get a value out of it? Now, you may find that as you do your map across the organization,
mhm,
where you have the most potential benefit minus cost equals value are in the areas that haven't been hit already. So while it's true you may be throwing something out, and you should be ready to do that, it is far more likely that the legacy system in an area where you haven't worked yet is a
mhm,
far better candidate to to be worked on next in terms of the sequence. But frankly, it doesn't matter. Um, it just it's just math. right? Where am I going to get the highest value? And go to the next one, and then go to the next one, and so on and so on.
Yeah, that's true.
Are we are we out of questions or not yet?
Oh, not yet. You've
Okay.
raised you've raised hot topics. I've got two here. And one of them is if your organization is culture is risk adverse, how do you cultivate fail early outlook?
So how do you calculate?
How do you cultivate fail
Oh,
early outlook? Yes, if your organization culture is risk adverse, how do you cultivate fail early outlook?
um, so every organization is risk adverse.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the fun parts about moving from organization to organization is every single group, organization, company that I've ever worked in has a different way of resisting change. And it's fascinating to me because you have to get something done in an environment that is expressly created to resist change. And to be fair, if it wasn't expressly created to resist change, there would be constant chaos. Right?
Mm,
So it's just so in for those people who grew up in a traditional family structure, there are questions the kids know to go to one parent about, and there are questions the kids know to go to a different parent about, and they have learned
yes.
that going to the wrong parent with the wrong question ends up in trouble. And usually the
Yeah.
parents very quickly have a rule about double asking. Hey, if you already asked this parent, you're not allowed to ask me because you didn't get the answer you want. And the kids learn, okay,
Mhm.
this kind of question, I go here, this kind of question, I go there. And so you can't get around the resistance to change. You can't get around risk adversity because it's real and it's there for a reason, but you need to follow it, right? So if there is a
Yeah.
resistance to change, cool. In this organization, how do they do that? And then follow the culture of that particular group. There is no textbook that was written at MIT in the United States, and then you try and apply the resistance to change process in outside Nairobi. No, it's a completely different culture. How does this group
Yeah.
and the best people to figure that out are cultural anthropologists. So if you have one of these kinds of people on your team, okay, how does this group sort this out? Okay, this is how we resist, how we address that. There's no single answer to that. And I know I'm conscious of our time, and there's a couple more slides I really need to get to before we finish. I'm just going to
Yeah.
quickly jump ahead. Um,
Okay, sure.
on on getting the project back into gear.
Mhm.
Um, for those people who've been in a Land Rover in the wet season and you get stuck, having a two-wheel drive vehicle, not great.
Oh,
Bit of a challenge, get out. And that's that concept of traction, right? So if you have many wheels moving, or many wheels motorized, not just in motion, but motorized, you have a much better chance of getting traction.
mhm.
Critically important. And one of the challenges around a failed project is sort of Newton's laws of inertia, right? An object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. So the amount of energy and effort to get an object moving again is a lot of work, a lot of energy. And you do that by splitting up your teams, and it's okay to give them redundant or overlapping activity. Remember those Venn diagrams from school where
Yeah.
this circle, this girl, and they overlap?
Yeah.
It's okay. And having them overlap because one group will come up with a successful idea in a different way than another group will be. And again, that's good. And then the
Mhm.
problem is imagine if you've got four people in a canoe paddling in different directions. So that's a problem.
No, you're
So
not going
one,
anywhere.
you're not going anywhere. So exactly. So
Yeah.
so at some point, as you're leading this transformation, you need to figure out, okay, my problem is no longer traction. I now have some motion. Now I need to switch to managing direction. And if I have too many people trying to steer, I'm going to be in trouble. So as you're leading this, let there be redundant teams trying to push forward. Excellent. And once you're in motion, your job is to coordinate them. They need to be working in the
Mhm.
same path. And that's painful. That's the most painful stop because three teams were working on it and two of them need to be told to stop. They are no longer in charge because you've decided to go with team number three as the whoever's going to be driving that change.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
difficult one.
and here, again, how to deal with a failed project. If you think you have the answer, you are part of the problem. It's truly that simple. Because if you were right in the first place, you probably wouldn't have a failed transformation project, right?
Wow, yeah. Mhm.
It's truly that simple. So you have to accept from the very beginning of the premise that I was wrong. Now, what I don't
Mhm.
know is where I was wrong. So this becomes an investigation into where, what did I get wrong? What did I get my technology wrong? Was I thinking too big? Did I miss the culture? Did I get the wrong people involved? What did I
Mhm.
go to a team that had no capacity to do their own jobs and take on this project work? Because remember, each one of these groups on absorptive capacity, we're asking people to do two jobs.
Yeah.
We're paying them for one. We're asking them to do two jobs where we bring them a project. Continue doing your own work
Mhm.
and help me do my project. So this is really critically important. As soon as you're, oh, this is not working. I have to fix this. I
Yeah.
was wrong. Where was I wrong?
Yes.
And spread that net out as wide as you can, and go to the people you failed and ask them how you failed them. Because if you get your project back in motion again, you are going back to them again.
Yeah.
And if you don't go back to them again with, "Hey, it's my fault. I didn't listen the first time," or "It's my fault. I didn't hear what you told me the first time," or "It's my fault. Here's what I'm doing different this time." You go back to the issue of absorptive capacity and resistance to change because people are smart.
Yeah. Can't run away from that.
Well, here's the basics, the steps, and if there is anything that I ask you to take away from this as we're sort of coming to the end here, I see, be the mosquito. How small how small can you get? How small a problem can you solve? How small a solution can you put in place? And then do it again. And then do it again and keep doing it. And eventually what you do is you end up with a culture that
Mhm.
accepts change as normal. Because if you look out there into the real world, the only constant is change.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Okay, I don't think there's really much on. Ooh. So if there are any last
Mhm.
questions, Victoria, I'll let you.
Yes, I actually do have two. It might take us back a bit, but this is from Ayakwa. Um, so it's another question from Ayakwa. You mentioned starting small. What does a
Yes.
successful small-scale digital transformation pilot look like? And how do you decide where to begin?
Oh,
Yeah.
um, so so the most successful small projects are things that could be standalone,
Mhm.
right? So essentially, a user interface is often a really simple one. Currently, if I want to do something for my job, there are 8 places I have to go to. Uh, and and one of the advantages around, oh, if you're not sure about something, you go to someone and you ask them for help. The most common thing in an organization is that person you go to. is the person who knows where things are. You still have to do your job, but you don't know where the information is. Uh, and so having interfaces that direct people to do that one is a really simple thing. It's a simple tool for IT. It's a simple tool to remove, because from an IT perspective, you're not building you're not building integration. You're building interoperability. So it's cheap, easy, it's throwaway.
Mm.
Um, and the advantage is you take the few people in your organization who know where things are, and you take that knowledge and you make it available to everybody. And essentially, it allows the experience of knowing where things are, it spreads it widely.
Mhm. Nice. Okay. Another question from Bukosi. Bukosi asks, when trying to convince a leader to support the culture component of digital transformation, what are the main tips of the company? What are the main tips if the company is anti-culture to begin with? What can one do?
Ah, um, so I take you back to my math again on benefit minus cost equals value. Focus on the value,
Mm,
right? If you speak to a leader and said, so here's an extra 50 hours a week. Would you, if I can remove 50 hours a week from people's existing work and you still achieve all the same results, don't you want that? So don't take them technology, right? Because technology is part of the cost, right? So it's often difficult to sell a cost. You can sell a benefit, you can sell a value. I would sell benefits.
yeah.
Who doesn't want a benefit? Um, the lottery tickets, they sell benefits.
Yeah, please.
They don't sell that the cost is this and the chances of actually winning are that. They sell the wouldn't you like to retire tomorrow? Wouldn't you like a sailboat? They sell the benefit. So if you're looking at addressing these with your boss, say, hey, wouldn't you like this benefit? And they, oh, I would love that benefit. Okay. If you would like that benefit, let me just sketch out to you what I think the cost would be of achieving that benefit. And then that cost that the team says, okay, well, here's some likely technologies. And this is where AI, and that's one of the sort of aspects of digitization that's become more common. AI is a really inexpensive way of addressing some of the onboarding of the cost of
Mhm.
of achieving your benefits.
That's true. Um, since we're about to wrap up, I have just one. This is for me. Just one question to wrap it up. So, Eden, a lot of these slides have been focusing on we, the team, what we need to do differently. But if you had to look at the C-suite executives or the board, or people basically with the money, setting, they are
Victoria,
not
you just
asking.
sorry, you broke on me, so I missed the last part of your question.
Oh, okay. I was saying that what is the one question that the board and the C-suite are not asking themselves about what's causing them failures in digital transformation? What are they not saying? What are the questions they should be asking in that room to get us to a place where what's causing these failures?
So, if 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 the boards you're talking about are fairly typical of large organizations, those executives spend more time looking at accounting spreadsheets than anything else. So from a benefits perspective, they address not only the first basic math of what am I going to get from this and what's going to cost. For the board or for your C-suite, they want to know that when I make this investment, do I get to continue receiving benefits?
Mm,
So how long is this good for? Right. And what else can, if I paid for this once, can I get recurring value from these investments? So, and this is where you make the case for when you do the project the first time and you receive your value, that's great. And sometimes the value is very low because one of the issues for the board is the next digital transformation project has new benefits, uses or reuses, or from an accounting perspective, amortizes the cost of the previous project to achieve it again. So my next project, new benefit, no new cost, much higher value. So as you want to talk to your C-suite around the benefits of digital transformation, if they jump in small, every subsequent project has increased value because they're amortizing their original costs over subsequent projects. So for them, their sequencing becomes a little bit different. For the users, they want to see some benefit, some value up front. For the C-suite, they're looking at an overall enterprise issue uh, because they because they're watching the bottom line. They're watching the dollars or or rand or shillings
Mhm. Yeah,
uh, at, that is showing up on the balance sheet.
no, brilliant. Eden, thank you so, so much. I think everyone here has learned so much, and hopefully we have the courage to have these conversations with our C-suite and our bosses after this, because, there's a little bravery required to take some of the steps to become
Yeah,
mosquitoes, and make all that noise. So, you've got lots of love and likes and applause, and I just want to
yeah,
thank you for this.
yeah.
For joining us.
I
And
would
I'll just take
I'd
this
also just
opportunity.
remind anyone who's on it, if they reach out to you or they reach out to Paul, they can have copies of both the here's what the book says about digital transformation, as well as a copy of the slide deck. Both are unlocked. Use them, no attribution required.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Eden. Eden has generously offered his brain and his IP for all of us to share and scale it out to the world. So we've got the opportunity to be mosquitoes and share the information and learn and teach. So thank you so much, Eden, for that. I'm just going to quickly let everyone know. As much as you loved this webinar, I just want to let you know that we have another one coming up on the 30th of July. And it's called AI Stacking for Beginners, to build a Claude Gamma Fireflies workflow in 60 minutes. And that will be on the 30th of July. I think Paul has actually shared the link in the chat. So that's the business end of things. Again, Eden, thank you so much. Everyone looks like they had a good time. I'm sure there are more questions. You might have more DMs or requests on your LinkedIn very soon. But thank you so
No
much,
worries.
guys. And for everyone in the chat, please follow the links that Paul has shared. Join our Transformation Leader groups and get to learn more, get to engage more, and use these opportunities to grow your careers, make the right changes in your organizations. So with that, guys, thank you and good night. Bye.